All right, so for the test, I'm going to separate the questions by instruction. So I know I didn't do that for the quiz, but I'm going to change it for the test. So kind of like how your quiz review was. So the first ones where you just factor normally, it'll say factor completely, just like the review. The next ones will say factor using the greatest common factor. So factor using GCF. Then the next type of questions is factor when A is not 1. Then the next ones, so it's these two here, 10 and 11. These will say factor the difference of squares. Number 9 is factor when A is not 1. And then 12 and 13 are factor perfect squares. So hopefully having the instructions there will kind of give you a hint on what to do with each type of question. So looking at number 1. Here we factor normally, but the difference is we have a negative out front. So what do we have to do if you have a negative out front? Divide everything by -1, but if we take out a -1, we have to put it on the outside. And then I change the sign of everything on the inside. So m squared minus 3m minus 40. Do I have two factors of -40 that add to -3? What are they? 8 and 5 and -8 and 5. So I have a -1 on the outside, and then inside I have m minus 8 and m plus 5. So on the quiz, a lot of people just saw factors of 40, and they put 4 and 10. But 4 and 10 don't add up to -3. So remember, they have to add to the middle number. Multiply to the last one, add to the middle. All right, let's look at number 3. What are two factors of 6 that add to 5? 2 and 3. So what would go into my parentheses? K plus 3 and K plus 2. So that's my answer. Any questions here? All right, number 5. So these are factor using the greatest common factor. So we want to take out a greatest common factor if we have one. So do I have a greatest common factor between 4x squared plus 20x? Looking at the numbers, what do 4 and 20 have in common? 4. So I can take out a 4. And then if I have an x squared and an x, how many x's can I take out? 1x. So I'm taking out a 4x. Whatever you take out, you have to write on the outside. A lot of people forgot that on the quiz. Don't forget, whatever you take out, you have to put it on the outside. 4 divided by 4 is just 1. What's x squared divided by x? So if I have 2 x's and I take one away, how many am I left with? Just x. What's 20 divided by 4? 5. And if I have 1 x and I take one away, they go away. So no x's. So this would be my answer. 4x times x plus 5. All right, let's do another greatest common factor one. So let's do 6. So the directions say factor using greatest common factor. So I know all of these have something in common. What can I take out? a 3, and then can I take out any r's? I can take out 1 r. So a 3r goes on the outside. 3 divided by 3 is 1. If I have 3 r's and I take 1 away, how many am I left with? R squared. What's negative 24 divided by 3? Negative 8. And then if I have 2 r's and I take 1 away, I'm left with 1 r. What's negative 27 divided by 3? Negative 9. If I have 1 r and take 1 away, I have no r's. What are 2 factors of negative 9 that add to negative 8? Negative 9 and 1. Perfect. So that 3r stays on the outside. Then I need my 2 sets of parentheses. So what goes inside the parentheses? R minus 9 and r plus 1. So that's my answer. So here we are factoring when a is not 1. How can we factor when a is not 1? What do we need to do first? Multiply what? Multiply the first times the last. So it's 2 times 36. 72. And what are 2 factors of 72 that add to negative 17? Nine and 8. Negative 9 and negative 8. So in my parentheses, I have p minus 9 and p minus 8. What do I have to do next? Divide. Since I started with a number that's not 1, and I started by multiplying, I have to make sure I remember to go back in and divide. Can I divide 9 by 2? So what do I do with the 2? Put it in front of the p. So this is 2p minus 9. What's negative 8 divided by 2? So p minus 4. Perfect. And that's my answer. So notice how the 2 that I divided just goes in front of the p. It doesn't go out front in front of everything. Just right in front of the p, inside the parentheses. All right, number 8. So I started with a number that's not 1. What do I have to do first? Multiply. So multiply the first times the last. What's 6 times? Negative 6 times 7. Negative 42. What are 2 factors of negative 42 that add to 1? 7 and negative 6. So in my parentheses, I have x plus 7 and x minus 6. What do I have to do next? Divide. Since I started by multiplying, I go back in and divide. What's 7 divided by 7? So x plus 1. Can I divide 6 by 7? So what do I do with the 7? Awesome. 7x minus 6. So I'm starting with a number that's not 1. What do I have to do first? Multiply the first times the last. So what's 7 times negative 90? Negative 630. And what are 2 factors of negative 630 that add to 53? Awesome. Negative 63 and 10. So in my parentheses, I have m minus 63 and m plus 10. What do I have to do next? Divide by 7. What's 63 divided by 7? Negative 9, so m minus 9. Can I divide 10 by 7? So what do I do with the 7? 7m plus 10. Any questions? All right, the next section will say factor the difference of, this should say, 2 squares. So when you're factoring the difference of 2 squares, you have 2 parentheses. So So it'll say factor the difference of two squares. That tells you you're going to have two sets of parentheses. So use the instructions to help you. If it says factor the difference of two squares, you have two sets of parentheses. So since these are perfect squares, what times what gives us 4? 2 times 2. And what times what gives us x squared? X and x. What times what gives us 1? 1 times 1. So what's going to go into my two sets of parentheses?
2x plus 1, and I think it's 2x minus 1.
Awesome. 2x plus 1 and 2x minus 1. One of your parentheses is plus and the other one's minus. Let's look at 10. So going backwards to 10. What times what gives us 9r squared? 3r times 3r. And what times what gives us 1? 1 times 1. So what's going to go into our two sets of parentheses? 3r plus 1 and 3r minus 1. Awesome. All right, so number 12. So here we're factoring perfect squares. So perfect squares means that we have one parentheses squared. So when your instructions say factor perfect squares, you're just going to have one set of parentheses squared. So what times what gives us x squared? X times x. And what times what gives us 25? 5 times 5. So in our parentheses, we have x and 5, and it's going to be squared. Don't forget your squared. What's the sign that goes in the middle? Plus, because since we have a plus sign here, it's a plus sign that goes in the middle. So you always take the first sign that it gives you. If it's a plus, you put a plus in the middle. If it's a minus, you put a minus in the middle. What times what gives us 25n squared? 5n times 5n. And what times what gives us 9? 3 times 3. So what's going to go into our parentheses? 5n minus 3 squared. Perfect. Since they're perfect squares, we know it's just going to be one parentheses squared. And then since I have a minus as my first sign, the minus goes in the middle. All right, now we're going to move on to solving. So to solve, we always want it to be equal to 0. And then remember, it has to be in the order like x squared plus x plus the number equals 0. So you have to start with the x squared first, then the x, and then the number comes next. So it has to be in this order. So for 14, what do I have to do first? Add 10m. And where's that 10m going to go? In the middle. So if I have m squared, then I have to put plus 10m, then plus 25. It's equal to 0. Then from here I have to factor. What are two factors of 25 that add to 10? 5 and 5. So in my parentheses, what do I put? X plus 5 and x plus 5, or m. It doesn't matter. Then from here, break up each one into its own equation. So x plus 5 equals 0. X plus 5 equals 0. And then what do I need to do to solve for x? Subtract 5. So x is equal to negative 5. Subtract 5 on both sides. So x is equal to negative 5. So these are our two answers. Again, it doesn't matter if you have x's or if you had m. So m is equal to negative 5 and m is equal to negative 5. So when you're solving, you're going to get x is equal to. The other ones you're just factoring. So you don't solve it all the way. You just stop when you factor. These you have to do the extra step and solve. Any questions here? All right, let's look at 15. So I need it to get equal to 0. Janessa, what should I do first? Awesome. Add 8x. And what else? So I'm adding 8x to the other side. What else needs to get moved to the other side? 15. So I'm going to add 15 to the other side too. So it's x squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. Jason, what are 2 factors of 15 that add to 8? 3 and 5. So in my parentheses, I have x plus 3 times x plus 5. Matthias, what's the next step? Awesome. So x plus 3 equals 0. X plus 5 equals 0. Subtract 3. So x is equal to negative 3. Subtract 5. So x is equal to negative 5. Those are our 2 answers.
Minus 6b.
Minus 6b.
Minus 6b.
So then I have b squared, and what comes next?
Minus 6b plus 8 equals 0.
Awesome. Daniil, what are 2 factors of 8 that add to negative 6?
Negative 2 and negative 4.
Negative 2 and negative 4. Perfect. So in my parentheses, I have b minus 2 and b minus 4. What do I have to do next?
B minus 2 equals 0. B minus 4 equals 0.
Awesome. So then what's b equal to?
3 equals positive 2. B equals positive 4.
Perfect.
Add 6 on both sides.
Add 6 or
Add B.
add b. So we have b squared. What comes next?
B.
Plus b
Minus 6.
minus 6. Bradley, what are 2 factors of negative 6 that add to 1?
3 is negative 3.
Which one's negative?
Oh no, negative 2.
Negative 2. So in my parentheses, I have b plus 3, b minus 2. Bradley, what's next?
Divide. B. Wait. Oh no. I don't know what to divide.
So we have b plus 3 equals 0 and b minus 2 equals 0. So you split them up so they have their own equation. And then we solve. So how do I solve the first one for b? If I have b plus 3 equals 0. What's the opposite of addition? So subtract 3. So b is equal to negative 3. And what about the other one?
Subtraction. I'm gonna add 2.
Add 2. So b is equal to 2. And those are my 2 answers. Good job. Roy, what should I do first for 18?
Divide by n.
Awesome. I have a greatest common factor of m, so I want to divide by m. So I have an m on the outside. What am I left with on the inside when I take out an m?
n plus 7.
M plus 7. And then what should I do?
Set that equal to 0.
So I have m equals 0 and m plus 7 equals 0. So both pieces have to get set equal to 0.
And then minus 7.
Perfect. So m is equal to 0 is already an answer, and then we just subtract 7 on both sides. So m is equal to 0, and m is equal to negative 7. So you want to take out an m first. Any questions here? All right, let's go to 19. Kimberly, what should I do for 19?
Divide by x on both sides.
Okay, I can do that. Well, I would subtract 1, right? Subtract 1. So I have x squared minus 1 equals 0. Then what do I do? Awesome. So x squared minus 1 is a perfect square. So it's the difference of squares. So I would have x plus 1 and x minus 1. And then from here, I break it up into 2 equations. So x plus 1 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0. So Noah, what does x equal? Awesome. X is equal to negative 1 and positive 1. Matthias, what should I do first for 20?
Could you divide them with a common factor?
What's my common factor?
Would it be 1?
What do they both have in common? An m. So I can take out an m. So I have m on the outside, and what's left on the inside? M minus 4. So then I set m equal to 0, and m minus 4 equals 0. So m is equal to 0 is already an answer. And then add 4 on both sides, so m is equal to 4. Good job. Any questions? So looking at 23, how can I factor this? Sophia, how do I factor number 23? Madison, how do I factor 23? But before I do that, I'm starting with a number that's not 1. Perfect. Multiply the first times the last. So this is negative 60. What are 2 factors of negative 60 that add to 11? 15 and negative 4. Perfect. So in my parentheses, I have x plus 15, or you could say k, and x minus 4. What do I have to do next? Divide by 3 first. Don't forget. So here I have x plus 5. And then what do I do with the 3 on the bottom? Put it in front of the x. So 3x minus 4. What do I do next? Equal it to 0. So x plus 5 equals 0. And 3x minus 4 equals 0. Not yet. I have to get this to be x equals. So for the first one, subtract 5 on both sides. So what does x equal? Negative 5. The second one, I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So 3x equals 4. What do I have to do next? Divide by 3. So what's x equal to? 4 over 3. So these are my 2 answers. What do I do first for 24? Multiply the first times the last. So 2 times 15 is 30. What are 2 factors of 30 that add to 11? 6 and 5. So my parentheses, I have x plus 6, x plus 5. What do I have to do next? Divide. So since I started by multiplying, I have to remember to divide. Divide by 2. So what's 6 divided by 2? 3. So I have x plus 3. The next one, 5 can't be divided by 2, so I move 2 in front of the x. So 2x plus 5. What do I do next? So set them both equal to 0. So x plus 3 equals 0. 2x plus 5 equals 0. So what does x equal? Negative 3. And then the next one, I would subtract 5. So 2x is equal to negative 5. Then what do? Divide by 2. So x is equal to? Negative 5 over 2. All right, one more. Daniel, what should I do first for 25?
Multiply 2 squared, 2r squared, and 2.
So multiply 2 times 2. So this would be negative 4, because it's a negative 2. What are two factors of negative 4 that add to negative 3?
Negative 4 and 1.
Perfect, negative 4 and 1. So here I would have r minus 4 and r plus 1. Damien, what do I do next? If I started by multiplying, what do I have to go back in and do? Divide. So I divide both of these by 2. What's 4 divided by 2? 2. And then if I can't divide it, I move it in the front. So this would be 2r plus 1. Set them both equal to 0. Perfect. So r is equal to 2. Roy, what do I do to solve the second one? Minus 1 first, so 2r is equal to negative 1, and then divide by 2. So r is equal to? Negative 1 over 2. Good job, guys. What should I do first for 22? Minus 4m, because we want to get everything to one side. So I have m squared first, then what comes next? Negative 4m, then minus 5 equals 0. What are two factors of negative 5 that add to negative 4? Negative 5 and 1. So I have m minus 5, m plus 1. What do I do next? Set them equal to 0. So m minus 5 equals 0. M plus 1 equals 0. So what does m equal? 5 and negative 1.